Ekwow Spio-Garbrah, former Trade Minister and ex-President John Dramani Mahama, and also former Ghana Ambassador to the United States of America and the ex-President Jerry John Rawlings. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us
on
New Day. What have you been up to? I've been seeing your adverts in the newspapers. I don't know whether that's an indication that you've already officially launched your campaign to contest as the NDC's flag bearer ahead of the 2020 elections.
Well, I've been spending time with friends, with family, with God as well. And certainly the advertisement you are referring to is simply an expression of interest in the position of leader of our party. The party itself has not officially announced any invitations for those who are interested in leading it. And we have to wait for that official invitation before you can pick up nomination forms, fill them. I'm sure there's a fee to be paid, and you have to go through a vetting within the party for them to be sure that you are the kind of candidate they believe could lead the party. Then you can become an official candidate and you can launch your campaign. So whatever anybody else is doing at this time, not just me, all the other people whose names you hear, nobody has launched their campaign yet, I don't think. And whatever you've seen in the newspapers or on social media are simply friends of mine or I myself indicating.
But you endorse those things, and that's quite problematic. At least we've spoken to Mr. Kofi Adams, the national organizer of your party. I've heard Mr. Johnson Dunketia also comment on that matter, that at this point, the NDC, your party has not officially opened nomination. So it's a bit problematic that aspirants like yourself will put out your names out there, seem to subtly or I mean openly sell your message to the party people at this point.
If we are infringing any party regulation, I'm sure they'll be able to point out the party regulation we are infringing.
The concern is that the party is reorganizing.
No, I'm saying that I've been a vice chairman of the party. I've been a director of communications at party headquarters before the people whose names you are mentioning ever entered the party headquarters. I've been a constituency secretary even after I've been a minister of state, and I've been a minister of state in 3-4 portfolios, as you may know. So I know what party regulations are about, and I don't think I or anybody else is infringing the regulations. In fact, the very people whose names you mentioned are ones who have actually been out, in some cases, openly announcing or endorsing another candidate for the same office. So the point is that there are numerous ways of campaigning, if you want. Some people see unity walks as a way in which some people may be campaigning. Others may see an advertisement as a form of campaigns. When you can print a T-shirt, there are many people's names, especially on social media, especially on WhatsApp. More than 30 different candidates, actually from both MPP and NDC and maybe other parties, who just put up a little flyer, electronic, and say so and so for 2020, so and so for youth organizer, for women's organizer, for numerous positions, all on social media.
Well, the explanation.
So if you want to curtail that, you can. We are all concerned about the party reorganization. Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned,
I get your point, Doc.
Well,
but the explanation is that
while waiting.
The explanation is that at this point, your party is reorganizing after what many have described as an embarrassing defeat in the 2016 general election. Right. The focus should be on that, and men like you, leading members, should channel all your energies there and not focusing on your individual ambitions.
No, we are not focusing on that. We are at the polling station level, at the branch level. We are talking to branch executives, constituency executives, regional executives through numerous channels, encouraging them to register, which is what was the case between January and February, registration of members at the branch level. We encourage our members, go and register. Then there's going to be branch elections beginning this Saturday. We're encouraging those who want to be executives to go and stand as candidates so that we can have fresh blood where fresh blood is needed, continuity where the people who have done good work need to be retained, and that's nationwide. 29,000 polling stations which are equivalent to branches in our party. So as to how one helps in reorganizing or reconstructing, there could be different views or ideas about how to do it. How do we, for example, understand the reasons why we lost in the last election? There's a Kwesi report. Most people haven't seen it, most people haven't read it. So then how do the branches or the regional executives or constituency executives learn from their errors in order to avoid repeating those mistakes? So all those are part of what we need to do. If we want to have a stronger, re-energized, revitalized party, to potentially win 2020. There are many dimensions.
You think that's the way to go? But talking about the reorganization process, one of the key things that the party is doing is the unity works. There was a recent one in Wa, there's been one in Tamale, and some other
They're
parts.
not party-sanctioned works. But
at least we've seen party executives leading that.
Anybody can join. Anybody can join any work, if you like. For example, some of us went and joined a demonstration under a Ghana First umbrella against the U.S.-Ghana military agreement. It was not an NDC organized work per se, but the NDC supported it or thought it was in the right direction. The unity works, as I understand them, I've participated in the one in the central region where I am from, because they are regional works. So if there's one in Wa, it's mostly for those in the upper west region. Even though anybody can attend them. If there's one in Ho, anybody can attend them, but you find that mostly those working are those from that region.
I'm struggling to understand what you mean by it's not a party-sanctioned activity.
Yeah, because NDC...
Because you've seen Johnson Essiedu Nketia.
You're asking me a question and I'm answering it.
Exactly.
Yeah, the General Secretary of the party is also an NDC member as an individual with a name. He can attend anything he wants to do. If he says he's attending that work because the national headquarters has mandated him to come there, then that's when it becomes official. So, as I'm saying, I've been a vice chairman of the party. When the party wants to undertake an exercise, we sit as a functional executive committee, we sit as a national executive committee, and we say, we shall do the following. And the party will fund it, and the party will organize it. Those works are not currently being organized by the party as NDC.
Do you have a problem with the fact that
people are...
Do you have a problem with the fact that with all these unity works we've seen, it's only the ex-president John Dramani Mahama, at this point, he's not made it clear that he's going to contest as flag bearer. There are indications. Do you have a problem that aspirants like yourself, Professor Joshua Labi, are not given the opportunity to address these unity works?
Well, that is what made some of us feel that the works are not as unifying, excuse me, as they were intended to be or as they were announced to be. If the organizers may declare that anybody who has shown any interest in leadership in the party could be given a chance to speak at these works, it would help to promote the sense of unity. Indeed, when the 31st December anniversary was being celebrated in Ho, where President Rawlings was the main speaker, because the 31st December belongs to his attempts to bring probity, integrity, and accountability into Ghana's governance, he pointedly invited at least, I think, 5 of the aspirants or potential aspirants to come and speak on the stage in Ho. So, if I remember correctly, after President Mahama had spoken, he invited Professor Joshua Labi to speak, he invited me to speak, he invited Mr. Mensah to speak, and I think Aban Bagbin as majority had already spoken. So that's the kind of format that our founder believes ought to be practiced in all the regions. And I think most aspirants will agree that, you see, the point is that no matter how popular anybody is, each person, such as myself, has some popularity in our party. Whether somebody thinks it's 1%, whether it's 35%, whether it's 60%, we'll only know when we get into the leadership race and people actually vote. But for the 1%, because in fact elections until this 44% loss, in the past, people were winning elections with less than 51% victory. Professor Mills won elections with less than 51%. President Akufo, I think, also won in some cases with less than 51%, etc. So, and a 1% popularity by somebody is an important figure that can change or swing an election result. So it's in the interest of the entire party, NDC, for anybody who has any degree of following, because we don't know what everybody's following is until we go and test it.
So it shouldn't be just ex-President John Dramani Mahama who is allowed to address these functions?
I think the functions be addressed by leading members of the party, however so defined.
Like yourself?
Well, some people think I'm a leading member of the party. What do you think? I think it's fair enough to say that having been a flag bearer candidate as far back as 2006, when I was actually working in London for the Commonwealth Telecom Organization, so I only had 2 or 3 months to campaign. And much as my former boss and beloved Professor Jolly Mills won that flag bearership race, I came in second, and some people would say that was a commendable achievement against fairly formidable other opponents. So that's 12 years ago. So if I've had 12 years of being second in a flag bearership race in Ghana, and after subsequently showing my commitment to the party by becoming a vice chairman of the party through, again, an open election, by accepting another invitation to come and join the cabinet of President John Dramani Mahama, and being the chairman of the Business Development Committee of the party, which again was approved after the last Congress for National Executives. And now we are going into another flag bearership race, and I've openly expressed interest in the position as I'm doing right here on this platform. I think it's in the interest of the party itself to ensure that whoever out there may be my supporters, and I have some supporters for sure, do not feel disenfranchised, do not feel abused or humiliated, and do not feel ignored or marginalized. That's how your
supporters feel?
Many of them feel that way, yes, for sure.
And you feel the same too? You feel same too?
I tend to rise above such feelings by focusing on what is good for the party, focusing on what is good for Ghana. But I cannot stop other supporters from feeling whatever they feel. We're all human beings, and we all react differently to different situations. But the other aspirants, those who have declared interest, also feel that they have been marginalized and in some cases humiliated, especially when the work is in their own region.
And I want to be sure that I understood the earlier point you made. Pretty instructive. Is it the case that you think that although this work has been tagged unity work, it's not achieving that purpose?
I won't be able to speak as to whether it's achieving the purpose or not, because I'm not one of the planners, and therefore I don't know what they intended.
Is it uniting the party?
Well, there are many ways of uniting a party. My view is that inviting anybody for any kind of work is a good thing. It's good for our health and for the health of those who work. So working is very good for the health.
United, we know what
Secondly, many people may not have had a chance to meet others in the party since we lost elections, because people are sitting in their homes, people are sitting in their offices, but the work brings people together, whether in the same town, the same region, or even people who cross regional boundaries to join other work. So there are many positive aspects of the work. The part that I'm saying some people and many people have some challenges with is who has the opportunity to address the gathering after the work has taken place. And I think there is in the party's own interest to demonstrate to the party faithful that we have a number of men and women in NDC who can both lead the party and who can support whoever the eventual leader is.
Still talking about and dwelling on matters relating to the largest opposition party, your own National Democratic Congress. You some time ago, if I remember accurately, described the NDC as a broken down vehicle. At this point, with somewhat 3.5 years or so to the next general election, you think the party is now viable enough to win another general election?
Between now and 2020,
or regain power?
Some people say that one day is a long time in politics. And so between now and the next general election, we are looking at more than 30 months. And I think that's more than enough time for any party or any individual whose vehicle may break down, or some people actually even called the NDC a lame horse, for such a horse to get veterinary attention from an animal doctor, or for a car that may have had any kind of problems with its starter or alternator or battery, to get replacement parts. So there's more than enough time for NDC to reorganize itself. But that is why every single step any of us take must have the party's broader interest in mind. And so for those of us who believe that we can have a different kind of approach from some of the approaches that we have, all these should be matters for consideration. But remember that for NDC to win the next election, it's not enough simply for many to be looking to failures of the NPP, which you haven't asked me about, but of which there are many, and to hope that Ghanaians will get disappointed or frustrated with the NPP and will just turn and say, NDC, where are you? Whatever state you are in, come and govern us. I don't think so. The reasons why almost 1 million NDC members did not vote for us in 2016 is a matter that is worthy of further investigation and exploration. I'm not sure we have sufficiently addressed that. The kind of slogans and communication strategies and messages we had, I'm not sure we've addressed that. The collation of results on election day, which collapsed totally under the last leadership, I'm not sure we've sufficiently addressed that. And the allegations and perceptions of corruption that have been leveled against our government and therefore the party, I'm not sure we have adequately addressed them. So there are a number of issues that require addressing, and then of course the new messages that we have to develop to bring to the people of Ghana. Because our last election communication was mostly about what we had done in the past. Look at the bridges we've built, look at the roads we've built, look at the hospitals we've built, look at the airports we've renovated. That was wonderful. But the people of Ghana were not looking to what we'd done for them already. They were asking the Janet Jackson question of what have you done for me lately and what will you do for me next? And that is where the MPP beat us with the communication, because then they promised wonderful slogans. One district, one factory. Oh, okay. One village, one dam. All right. I think you know the rest. One tilapia, one banku, and
I did hear about that. But moving away from your own party and focusing on the incumbent government, President Ekwow-Addo's administration, 15 months in office after being officially inducted into office as president on January 7, 2017. What have been your impressions so far? Various sectors of the economy impressed?
Well, the Ekwow-Addo regime began on an unfortunate and ominous note, where on the very day the president was being inaugurated, the speech was littered with plagiarism, big word for stealing other people's words and language in your address. And unless my parliamentarians tell me otherwise, I believe a request to Excellency the President even to expunge from the Hansard, the records of Parliament, the offending words that were stolen from other speeches of other presidents. I believe the last time I checked, it hadn't been done. I hope it has been done now, because our parliamentarians are pointing out that in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time, students doing research on presidential speeches or parliamentary practices will go and find these offending passages in the Hansard. But let's pray that it has been done, or to be done. Then the next thing was, one of the first things the president has to do, appoint your ministers. And after complaining about the size of the NDC government, people would have expected downsizing of the government. On the contrary, our president took our ministerial appointees from 80-something to 110, thereby causing chaos on night live or late night talk show programs all across the world. When Nigerians and South Africans and American TV programs were laughing at Ghana, which was unfortunate for our reputation. So then we came into the reality of government. So now let's govern. We are waiting for the one district, one factory. We are waiting for the one village, one dam. So 1 year has passed, and unless somebody tells me otherwise, nobody can name one dam. And I don't know how big a dam they want to build and how expensive it is, but if you're going to build a dam in 2,000-3,000 villages in the northern region in 4 years, you'd expect that you have built one or you've built three. And we can announce today on TV3 that, oh, if you go to Bunkrugu or you go to Wale Wale or you go to Sandema, you will get
the vice
one
president
dam
has
there.
indicated that the
These
official
dams,
commission of that project was somewhere in June.
So let's pray for the sum of the dams to be built. One district, one factory. Again, that's a lot of factories to build. And so if in your first year you have not been able to build one was, I think it was a cutting of a sword or some commissioning of something. But if you've seen a product coming out of that factory, that this is pineapple juice made in a Kumfi, branded so-and-so name, I haven't seen one. I'm a pineapple farmer. So I'll be happy to see a pineapple factory in the central region, but it takes time. And I just asked a very, very prominent businesswoman today, do you know the business model for this one district, one factory? And the person said, look, I've been to the one district, one factory office, ask them for the policy framework that they are going to use, ask them for the financial plan for a model factory, what percentage of the money will come from government, what percentage will come from the private sector, what technology should be used, what kind of business plan is to be established, what kind of marketing and distribution networks the factory should. And the person says there is nothing there. Now, I haven't been there myself, so I'm only reporting what a very prominent Ghanaian businesswoman has said to me only just today, that there's nothing on the one district, one factory. She herself would wish to benefit from it, but they are very unclear. Another Indian businessman who spoke to me last week, when I said that, well, why can't they even use the Commander Sugar Factory, which we built at the NDC? It doesn't belong to the NDC government. It belongs to the people of Ghana. So I don't know why MPP have a problem just taking a factory built with Indian government loan to the people of Ghana, which all of us must repay. If you want to brand it as one of the one district, one factories, I don't think anybody can have an objection. All they have to do is to make sure, because I left that ministry with offers on the table. Private investors who wanted to buy 70% of the shares in that factory for $25 million to reduce government's financial exposure and to also put in private management and skilled management into the factory because there was no intention for public servants to manage that factory, as MPP and President Kufuor did with Ghana Airways, where the chief of staff apparently was the de facto chief executive officer or chairman of Ghana Airways, signing checks for Ghana Airways from the Flagstaff House, or rather from the old Castle Osu, and then ending up collapsing that airline, selling the entire assets of the airline, selling all the lands and all the bungalows of the airline, selling the headquarters of Ghana Airways. So if today want to establish a new airline in Ghana, you don't have any landing rights in Rome, in London, in Johannesburg, in New York, in Lagos, in Monrovia, or Johannesburg. How do you start an airline? So that's the example of how MPP government deals with enterprises, even though they're supposed to be a business-friendly government. In principle, they are supposed to be. But in reality, you don't see the...
I get your point, but for a government that has a 4-year mandate, yes, at least for its first term, are you not being overly pessimistic about what will happen?
With their flagship,
what will happen in the next 3.5 years? For example, with the one village, one dam, one district, one factory. As I mentioned, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has indicated that the
pronouncements
will happen.
Pronouncements. They are very good at pronouncements. I said the one district, one factory was a very nice slogan. Sloganeering. Fantastic, MPP.
But recently we've heard from the information minister, Mr. Spio-Garbrah, Dr. Spio-Garbrah.
Yeah, they will not even build them.
Yeah. Exactly. You heard? Were you surprised?
I was not surprised because we've been telling them that promises are very easy to make. One belt, one road is the Chinese program and philosophy, from which I believe the MPP went and heard and borrowed their one this, one that concept. So one district, one factory, great idea. In fact, some Sierra Leonean politicians were even using it.
So it can be done. It can be done as former trade minister.
All kinds of things can be done, depending on how you plan your budget. If you want most of your resources to go into one district, one factory, you may not be able to implement a free SHS at the same time, or you can implement a partially free SHS, but not a completely free SHS. There are all kinds of things you can do.
Well, they are getting
that is why they found out. That's why they found out after pronouncing free SHS that they couldn't start with all 3-year cohorts in the senior high schools. So let's start with the first year only. And that disenfranchised parents whose children were in the second and third years. Then number 2, even though we are going to do free SHS for the first years, we only have 20% of the money to give to them. For more than half of the term, I don't know when they actually paid the rest, but for more than half of the term, headmasters and matrons and bearers were waiting for money and couldn't get it because only 20% have been disbursed to them. Then you budget only 1 cedi, 10 pesos per child per meal. These are growing children. Some are taller and bigger than you and I, between the ages of 14 and 18, who are eating quite a lot. I don't know how many of the parents who are listening to the sound of my voice can feed a child with 1 cedi, 10 pesos per meal per day. But that's it. 3 cedis, 30 pesos is all they give to the matrons per child. So some parents said, look, we would like to supplement our children's fees because we used to pay the fees anyway. In fact, some of them used to pay for 2, 3, 4, 5,000 cedis or dollars for primary education, not to even mention kindergarten education. And they paid similar amounts for junior high school education. So if you say you are going to take over that responsibility from the average parent, then the parent hopes you can sustain the levels at which they were paying for their children, because they didn't come and request a free senior high school from you. You came and promised it.
But some would argue that this is certainly better than your progressively free,
no,
because
it is not.
At this point,
it is not.
Poor parents can afford it.
So yes, so now you're talking poor. This refers to means testing. In all other rational societies, what will happen is that you know their parents whose children went to certain primary schools. You can mention some of their names. If your child went to junior high school in, say, Morning Star or some other such fancy school, which are good, then it means that parent could afford a certain kind of junior high school education. And that parent probably lives in Laboni Cantonment Airport area, Trasaco, Villaggio, and all these nice neighborhoods, has 3, 4 cars, etc., dropping their children. And so such a parent, if you ask them to pay their child's senior high school education, they may not be offended. In fact, the government then subsequently said they are going to set up a certain fund for those parents who would like to contribute to their children's education to pay the money into that fund. Strange proposal. Why should a parent who wants to help their child at Opokowari or Seviwoso Secondary School go and put money into a fund for bureaucrats to manage, and that money won't get to her or his child at Tamale Secondary School or Navogo Secondary School? Most parents are concerned about their own specific children. They may have reasonable sympathy for all other children, but their focus is on my child who is at Sugakope Secondary School. So allow me to support my child's education. You say, no, go and pay into some special fund. The Ghana Education Trust Fund, which by God's grace I initiated and established, of course with the help of a number of other people, actually allows the government, if they wish, to be the source of the collection of the so-called voluntary contributions that Ghanaians can make. But they want to go and establish another separate fund. Nobody's going to contribute to that fund because it does not make, with all due respect, the sense that most parents wish to spend their own money on their own children and not on other people's children. That's unfortunately how human minds work. So the free SHS is already bedeviled by that problem. You saw how students were crowded into dormitories. Good intentions, but poorly implemented. So no additional classroom space, no additional dormitory space, diseases and illnesses of all kinds, schools closing early.
So for you, the ideas themselves are good.
They sound good on paper, but when somebody asks you on BBC, as I think Sanavanoka or whoever the BBC interviewer was, ask our current president, who was then a candidate, how much will your free SHS cost? And former now president, then a candidate, had no idea. He said, well, wait and let me go back to Ghana and I'll tell my own people how much it costs. When he came, he didn't know how much it would cost. It was only when MPP came into office that they began banding figures from 450 million to 500 million per annum. And our colleagues who have worked more recently in the Ministry of Education, who therefore know what the cost structure is, keep telling them in Parliament, these costs you are bringing here are not realistic. It will not fund a free SH program. So the challenge with NPP, with all their alleged competencies, is that they cannot even calculate the cost of a senior high school education for one person, multiply it by the number of students who are likely to become senior high school students, and get a figure, a calculation which any senior high school student should be able to make in a BEC or WASI examination. So they can't make that calculation, and therefore their budget figures are out of kilter. And that is why we are saying that if they claim to have the competence, the implementation programs that they have, whether it is for the free SHS, whether it's for the one village, one dam, whether it is for one district, one factory, whether it is $1 million other dollars or cedis per constituency, which has not been disbursed yet, all point to significant deficiencies in their thinking and their planning processes, which are making Ghanaians wonder what is going on here.
But
and the worst of them all, with all due respect, because it only happened recently, is how a lawyer who is believed to be one of the best lawyers in Ghana, that's how MPP have been projecting His Excellency the President, many years of law. If the people of Ghana went to President Akufo-Addo, a good lawyer, and said, Mr. Lawyer, there's an agreement that somebody is sending to us, United States. They want to have a military so-called facility in Ghana. Please look at this agreement and see how you can improve it for us to protect our national interest. Assuming he was a lawyer and not a president. Is the president of Ghana telling us that as a good lawyer, he couldn't add one comma, he couldn't add one sentence, he couldn't add one, exclamation mark?
You're talking about the U.S. Ghana.
Yeah, because that's how it happened.
What are your reservations about that?
The Minister of Defense said his hands were tied. Who is tying the hands of our Minister of Defense, who has sworn an oath to defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana? But when a foreign country wants to negotiate with you, and I can now speak as a former ambassador to the United States, where it was reported, if he says he never said it.
Because from the conversation that has gone on,
what I heard.
What the defense minister has indicated is that the country's defense chiefs and the United States own DOD, the Department of Defense officials, sat down and put this agreement together. But what are your specific reservations about the agreement?
A first-year law student at the University of Ghana, and I didn't study law, but I can assure you, if you ask my classmates, they'll tell you that if I were a first-year law student and you gave me that agreement, and you said this is an agreement between the United States and Ghana, and you try it at the University of Ghana even as a test. I hope one professor or lecturer can do that this very semester. Please improve this. Strengthen Ghana's position in this agreement. Let there be a test in any law school in Ghana today and see what ordinary 19, 20, 30, 40, well, whatever their ages are, 24-year-old law students will do to that agreement. And it's just by adding a few sentences here or there. This can happen subject to the approval of the Ghanaian revenue authorities. This one also can happen subject to the approval of or consistent with Ghana's import laws. This also can happen subject to Ghana's immigration procedures. Just little phrases like that would have protected Ghana's national interest. Now, you've heard my good friend, the U.S. ambassador, talking about homosexuality, etc.
Robert Jackson.
And you've also heard our president also talking about, oh, homosexuality will happen in Ghana sooner or later. Whether this is what we've read or heard. If the United States chooses to send 200 homosexual military personnel to Ghana, and since in their country open homosexuality is supposedly acceptable, men kissing men, women kissing men in public, is that something you think Ghanaians will want to see in Ghana? So you could introduce a clause that says that, you know, sexual practices of the military.
You think such a clause should have been introduced under the circumstances?
Well, if you have reason
following the comments by
if you have reason to worry about it, if you are representing Ghana's interest, you see, this is the problem when we become public officers. There's something called the national interest, which is different from our personal interest. And my experience in public service in over 20 years is that, with all due respect, not everybody understands the difference. You may have your own personal beliefs and your personal faith. You may also have your personal interest in something. But your job as a public servant, after you've sworn that oath on the Bible or the Quran, is to protect the national interest. And as long as you know that more than 99.something% of Ghanaians do not believe and do not want to support gayism and lesbianism. Whether it's a good thing or it's not a good thing, it's not my issue. In Ghana here, and in most parts of Africa, most Ghanaians, and I'm saying it's more than 99%, do not think these are practices we should support. So if you have reason to believe that the other party who is entering into that negotiation with you has a different cultural practice from yours, and that this agreement, rightly or wrongly, could be used as a conduit for the wrong kind of personnel to come here, you can say that, well, you can admit US personnel except those who have this particular problem. Or if such people come in and practice what they believe in, which we don't believe in, then this is the course of action that must be taken.
We have a couple of minutes to wrap up. But the president's address generated a lot of controversy. National debate is come under a lot of scrutiny. Some think it was harsh. For example, describing the minority members who've been quite critical of this agreement as unpatriotic and all that. Were you surprised by the president's tone and language?
I was very surprised because I thought this was an opportunity for the president to have adopted a more conciliatory approach. That may sound like a big word, but an approach that will unify Ghana. And I don't know why, as I've said, if first year, second year, third year law students are given this agreement and asked to improve it from Ghana's point of view, and I'm sure many of them will know what to introduce to improve it. It defies, well, most people's imagination. Why a very distinguished lawyer in Ghana, who happens to be a president, cannot see one single clause or paragraph in it that he can improve? And why the document should go to Parliament, where there are at least 20 or more lawyers, and of course, 200 other equally brilliant people from different professional backgrounds, and be told that they cannot change one word. This is the problem. Ask whether the agreement had a single word added to it, a single comma added to it. So what is Parliament for?
Okay.
Is Parliament a rubber stamp? Are we converting our distinguished parliamentarians, who we spend a lot of electoral commission money on, and they also spend their own money campaigning all over the place, to be selected from their different political parties to represent us in Parliament? We convert them into a rubber stamp. So we take their brain power from their heads and put it outside and say, well, they're just robots. Stamp it and let the document go through.
Doctor,
it is a very unfortunate situation in our Parliament.
I really want us to touch on this before we go. We round up on this entire conversation. This whole controversy led to Mr. Ekwow passing certain comments that led to his arrest by the police, CID and all that. Many have called on top officials of the NDC to condemn his comments. Of course, it's still under some form of investigation. Would you agree with those who say Ekwow certainly went overboard?
I can only say that I don't think there's anybody in Ghana who looks forward to, expects, or will promote a coup d'etat. That I don't think so, because coup d'etats were, if you like, ended. The coup to end all coups was the 31st December 1981 coup or revolution that President Rawlings led. And I think in the military itself, most military officers know that the wages of a coup is death, because that 79 and 81 coups led to the execution of at least 3 former heads of state and several other generals. So I don't think in the barracks the idea for most officers is, let us change government by coup d'etat. Secondly, anyone who belongs to any political party will know that when and if there's a coup in any country, political parties are among the first to suffer because the coup makers invariably either proscribe the parties or the party cease to function. Parliament closes down. The constitutional order is suspended. And so truly it cannot be to the benefit of any political party. And so if you're asking me about what I think about those statements, that's what I will say. And I think that...
you went overboard?
Well, those are your words.
I'm asking.
I've described what I think about coup d'etats in Ghana.
I want a yes or no answer. Were those comments acceptable?
I've given you an answer.
Were those comments acceptable?
I've given you an answer.
Were those comments acceptable?
I've given you an answer.
Were those comments acceptable?
Acceptable to who?
To the entire country.
I'm saying that I don't think anybody in Ghana will promote or expects a coup d'etat. Now, the circumstances under which he said it, as you said, have been investigated. So let's wait and see why
you seem to be avoiding the direct response.
I've given you a very good answer, which everybody listening to me can interpret.
All right, thank you very much. That was Dr. Ekwow Spio-Garbrah, former Trade Minister, and John Dramani Mahama, ex-president, and also former ambassador of Ghana to the United States of America, talking about a number of issues from his own assessment of the MPP administration under President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to the most controversial issue in Ghana now, the U.S.-Ghana Military Cooperation Agreement. Thank you so much, sir. Grateful for your time here on New Day.
Thank you very much for having us.